for me, I think that there's only one race, which is the human race.
One race.
That we just have different cultures.
Hi, welcome back to my comfy couch. Say hi, everyone. We have a full house today. We have a full house today. So we have Thaddeus, of course, as always. We've got Sheldon with us. Say hi, Sheldon.
Hi, how you doing? How's everybody doing?
We've got Jahan, which is one of our returning guests tonight. Say hi. Toodles.
You got it.
We have Daryl with us. Say hey, Daryl.
What's up, y'all?
One of our fan favorites too. And we have his daughter. Y'all wanted me to bring him back. I brought him back. And we also have Hannah. Say hi, Hannah.
Hi.
Okay, so they're joining us today, and the topic today is dating outside of your race. So this is going to be maybe a sensitive one, but we want to talk about that right now because, as you know, our culture is all about diversity, inclusion, but does that trickle down into the dating field? Is there still some distinct differences and issues that might come about in dating because we're dating outside of our race? So that's what this discussion is about, to just kind of have an open discussion on dating, what is our kind of experiences, and any challenges we might face when trying to date outside of our race, okay? So, Sheldon's ready to bring a fire. Okay. So my first question out the gate is, who wants to share, because I always give everyone homework, on what's been your experience dating outside of your race? Have you tried it? Did you like it? Did you have issues? Like, what's been your experience? Sheldon said pick me, so I'm gonna pick you, Sheldon. Go ahead.
All right. Well, some background. I'm 35. I'm in a 2-year relationship now with someone within my race. But before that, I've never dated within my race at all in life. So everyone I've ever dated is outside my race. I love it, to be honest with you. It's weird because I think of it's like the best and worst of both worlds. So it's kind of a challenge. And I'm intrigued by it because I love, as a person within myself, I love culture shock. Like, I love going to different places just to experience different ways of life. So in my dating world, I was like, why not?
So you said that you enjoyed it. So you totally dated outside of your race only, except now? Pretty
much.
Okay, so you said you loved it. So did you encounter any challenges? Did you think it was enriching?
It doesn't come without its challenges.
Such as?
Okay, I've dated white, Spanish, Asian, Pacific Island. I've dated all the different races. And the biggest differences the biggest hurdle I can tell from my own experiences is getting them to understand your culture as a person. Overall, if two people could get together from different races and they actually want to understand each other's cultures and they actually put the effort into understanding each other's cultures, it's a beautiful thing. You make pretty babies.
You have one to prove. You have one to prove.
I definitely have one to prove it. he's the prettier version of me, you know, Jesus. But the thing is, you definitely come with the difficulties. Like, I'll give you an example. Dated one white girl where, like, cool girl, she was into it. But then once you start getting into meeting family members, friends, and different things like that, then you start dealing with like the societal differences. And it's a big difference. Because I work in corporate world. So it's like, when I go to work, I'm in a suit, briefcase, you know, in the office. But then when I'm not at work, you know, I'm chilling. I got my sweatsuit on, my J's, my jewelry, I'm cooling. But I've definitely run into the experiences where the dads hate me. Moms love me, but dads hate me.
Because you voted their daughter. They're like, oh.
and I'm usually bigger than them. So they're like, you dating my daughter? Okay.
Okay, so what anybody else want to jump in? Like, have you guys had a similar experience where maybe you and the partner are getting along, but maybe the family wasn't, you know, too in love with the idea. What about you guys? What's been your experience?
So my son is currently in an interracial relationship right now, where his girlfriend is African American, and the mother really does not like him because he's white, and she told him that. So, and on top of it, to make it more worse, is that I think she might be also anti-Semitic. So she had made some comments about being Jewish. So he has to deal with a lot of it, and I tell him this is part of what he has to deal with for, for being in love, and that he has to work it out with this mom to try to win her over if he wants to do that.
I'm wondering if it's generational, because it's like both of your stories, maybe the parents had an issue, but the kids were more so open. So maybe it's a generational thing. What about you, Jahan and Thaddeus? Have you guys had any experience dating interracially?
I can start off by reading a quote
Oh, tell me.
from the 48 laws of power, right? He says people who flaunt their infatuation with a different culture are expressing their disdain and contempt for their own. He continues to say that they are using the outward appearance of the exotic to separate themselves from the common folk who unquestionably follow the local customs and laws, and to express their sense of superiority. Otherwise, they would act with dignity, showing respect for their kind.
Oh, ooh.
I strongly disagree.
Wow.
So this quote came from the story he was giving a story about this warrior who enjoyed the Persian culture, and then because of that, he ended up losing his life. Long story short. But I felt that this was very interesting because I believe some people have the idea that if you're dating someone outside of your race, it's because you hate your own self or you hate your own race. So that's why I wanted to start off my experience with that. I was on a date with a guy, African-American guy, and he said to me that if I was one shade lighter, as a Black woman, if I was one shade lighter, he would not have dated me. So it's a flip script there, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, interesting. So now I think that's more in the conversation of colorism.
Yes.
Right? But we'll probably come to that another time.
Yeah,
yes,
some people don't know how to separate.
On here. We're going to talk about it. They don't know how to
separate.
So, but with my personal experience of dating outside of my race, I didn't experience anything where I felt rejected because of the color of my skin. It was an amazing experience, actually. His family loved me. We had an amazing relationship. His mom, his dad, his sister, and it was very far from my culture, very different. So, and I'm currently dating someone outside of my race. So with my experience with that, I must say, I'm open to it, obviously. And it's not because I hate the color of my skin, but when you are open to different cultures and experiences, and you travel, you tend to realize we are all alike. Because some women would think oh, when I leave my home country, let's say you're coming from a small island, because I've heard people say it, I am marrying no, right? I ain't getting with no, I want to make some white, light color babies with nice hair. They say these things, but it's coming from a place where it's actually self-hate because of the experience that they've had in the past, culture-wise, and again because of colorism in a place like St. Lucia. So, but I didn't have that experience in St. Lucia. I had a totally different experience when it came to people who were of different cultures and different color. So when it came to dating, I was very, very open to it, and I've had amazing experiences with it, actually.
And I think you bring about a good point, because I do think there is a difference between, let's say, if you're dating Americans versus dating someone out of the country, because that there, you know, has been that whole black and white type issue in terms of slavery and everything that comes along
Right.
with dating Americans. But like you said, in the Caribbean, even my mom said in the Caribbean, and even her grandfather said they didn't experience slavery and all that. So it's more of a class struggle there versus
Yep.
a black and white racial type
Yeah.
issue. So that's another thing too, because the two guys that you've dated, were they American outside of your race? Were they American or from
No,
another?
they were not American.
Yeah, so I think that has a large part to do with it too, if it's within the country or out.
And there's another thing too that a lot of people forget, like dating a Black American and dating a Black West Indian is two completely different things.
Totally different experiences.
And dating a European white person and an American white person, two completely different things.
Exactly. And I wanted to touch on that too, is even within the quote unquote race, the different ethnicities within it, there is an issue there as well. And I did want to touch on that. But let me let Thaddeus speak before we go in that direction. Thaddeus, have you dated outside your race?
I have.
And what's been your experience?
So this is the thing. So, you know, I always come with, you know, from always left field, right? I always have a different outlook on it. And for me, I don't even like the box that we put ourselves in as far as like race. I think culture is more important. Culture is more important than race. And for me, I think that there's only one race, which is the human race. That we just have different cultures, and we were segregated by color. So we assume that because somebody's Black, they assimilate to a certain culture. So your experience with dating a Black person, any Black person, will kind of be the same, because not because they're Black, but because they come from a different culture. Now, for me, I've dated people outside my race, but from the same culture. So it wasn't anything different. I didn't see them as anything different. I didn't look at this person and say, oh, well, they were white or they were Spanish or anything. It's just that they were from they're from the same culture. And so we meshed. I've never had a problem. There was no incident of, oh, let me show you my culture. And no, because the cultures were very, very similar. We pretty much ate the same food, drank the same thing. We had the same struggles, the same stories with our parents. We could laugh at the same exact jokes because we come from the same exact culture. Second thing is that, like when we talk about dating people outside a race, I think people look at it as just like an experience. It's like something to do. If you're looking at it like that, then that's why people would be a little bit more open to do it, because in their head, this is not permanent. This is just something that they're trying, something that they're experimenting with. I choose not to really date that way. If you're going to do that, make sure it's something that you want it to last for a long time. I see that a lot with people when they are dating around. They date from other races and all that, but the minute that they really want to settle down long term, they usually pick someone of their culture and of their color and of their race. So
I agree.
Yeah,
I've had some. For me, it's like if you look back at history, the historians say everyone's from Africa anyway. So technically, based on the definition, everyone's Black. It's just based on human evolution. If you're started out Black and you went to Antarctica, your body's going to adapt to where you are. You know, that's what literally this difference in skin color comes from. It's the difference in melanin and light and things like that from science. So to say different races and stuff like that, like people want to create a box to put themselves in.
That's correct. But so are you open to dating outside of your culture?
Not my culture, no.
Why not?
There's too many differences. I think that if you're talking about long-term, something that you want to, there's too many. Marriages, first of all, is too difficult. Like relationships are too difficult for you to add the added complexity of dealing with someone from a different culture. It's like the way that we raise our kids, the way that we think about money, what we want to do, our religion. If all of that is different, I mean, why are you guys together?
I dated a lot of women who only know what their version of the world is like. So the hard part and difficulties for me came in when I'm sitting here like, I don't care where you come from. I don't care about your culture, none of that. What I care about is what's the dynamic going to be between me and you? Because technically, you're the only person I have to deal with. It would be nice if I get along with your family. It would be nice if I get along with your friends. But we technically don't have to do that. My relationship is with you. So when you come from a different space, if you're not coming into it with the openness of trying to understand the other person and grow to figure out what works for the two of you, you're doomed from the start.
What about you, Daryl? What about you? What's been your experience? You talked about your son. How about you? Are you open to dating outside your race? Have you tried it?
I'm open. Unfortunately, I don't get many takers, so I would like to have more experience. My mother and my father are outside their race, and I've got to see the struggles on that. But so I've always been open to having, I think women from all around the world are beautiful. What I do see is I have friends that date, and I have a particularly best friend that is dating. She's American and he's Hispanic. He's from Colombia, and I see their struggles is a lot with culture. Just, everything, and from the standpoint, I see that they probably struggle more with culture than with their and on top of it, communication. So like things that are, I think he doesn't have the full grasp of the language. So I think he's frustrated for not always being able to say what he wants to say. And then I think she also has a different view of what she thinks is right or wrong or what's acceptable. And in the Latin cultures, there's a lot of things that are very machismo. Not saying that's wrong or right, but just giving you an example. And then, when I had told her, like, hey, when you're dating this type of guy who's from another country, you're also dating all the cultural things that come with that. And I don't think she really understood what I meant by that. Like, just, hey, I don't want to eat hot dogs. I want to have some Hispanic food. I want to go, even the beach. I want to go to Deerfield Beach, and he wants to go to Hollywood Beach because he wants to see his people, And then just the way Latin people are more loud and I don't know, vibrant, and he doesn't want to necessarily just be at home and watching television. So these are all things that you don't think that happen, but then when you go to celebrations and different things, I see that. So I, being a product of a interracial relationship, I never had a problem with it. Like I said, I'd like to have more women that want to pick me, so they should.
I would like to have
At the moment,
Put it out there.
I do see culture as being a huge issue with people and how that plays a role in their relationships.
I think I'd like to add on to that because I dated someone who was Muslim my junior year of college, and that was very much an East-West divide in terms of the world. Like on paper, we both did coding. He was finance, I was econ, and on paper, it works out when you think, but when it comes into meeting friends, it became quite difficult because there were definitely divides in like the way, like there's Ramadan versus essentially Christmas, how we spent free time, the idea of praying 5 times a day versus the more casual things, the thing on not drinking alcohol, and my American friends drinking a lot of alcohol on the weekends due to being in Greek life, and just the differences towards his whole friend group being from international world schools and my friend group being very traditional SEC. There was a deep divide, not only in communication, but just in ways of life on how we approach things, because whereas what's traditional in American culture on like the going out, the partying, his friend group was working at Goldman Sachs and was working towards getting visa status, towards working at the Deloittes of the world. And it became to be a great clash. Like we still talk to this day, and we endorse each other on LinkedIn, and like I catch up with him. He's in Pakistan right now. But it was very hard because even the way we studied was different just because of our schedules. And I think that was like the deepest divide in that is just like, as much as you can try to understand dating cross-culturally against those barriers of Christian versus Muslim, is quite difficult because there's just so many barriers that you have to continuously step into that you don't necessarily even think about. Like, yes, I think a lot of people like to think that religion doesn't matter until you get into thinking about, well, what does that mean for the holidays? What does that mean for our friend group? what about this idea of having, the idea of women's liberation versus a more traditionally patriarchal society? And what does that look like? How do we interact with each other? Because, some of my friend group that was more into traveling and being abroad were more open to being around more students that were international, whereas others of my friend group really struggled with the idea on how you even could date interculturally because they didn't know anybody who had done it. And, people say love transcends boundaries, but you also have to be realistic towards this notion of discrimination. And you're practicing against, 2,000 years of life. So it's not just about going beyond racial boundaries. It's also, I think culture transcends race in so many ways because, like I said, on paper, we were both great students. We both had similar hobbies. We both liked all the same things, but the cultural divide just was too much.
Hannah, to agree with you, but to give you different perspective, in my belief, I do believe love does transcend boundaries. Tell me why. Because if you're with someone with a different race, right, and they're willing to face those boundaries with you, they're willing to face those friends, they're willing to face those differences, and the bond between you and them are intact, and you guys won't let anyone come between you, what's the problem?
I hear what you're saying, but here's the thing. Like for my son, I see it takes a really strong person to go against your family, and then they don't like
it. It doesn't come without its difficulties.
They're always gonna make jokes about him, like look at this cracker, and then they say those kind of things, and I think eventually I do think it kind of wears on the relationship more than one wants to admit, and I think that's where the hard part of dating, someone who doesn't even understand your culture, understand how it all works.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I was just coming from a space of if you and your partner are from two different cultures and you guys took the time to educate the other person on what your culture means, and like you said, communication is the biggest part of it. Like, I'll give you an example. At my son's first birthday party, I have a mixed race child. She's white, Polish and Italian, and I'm West Indian. So I'm all mixed up. Her father came to me. At the end in West Indian culture, everyone's like family. So when the mess from the barbecue is there, everyone's helping clean up this and that and the third. So one of my best friends, his mom, who's Jamaican, she's helping us clean up. Her dad doesn't know who that is. Her dad pulls me aside and goes, "Sheldon, is that the maid?" I looked at him, and I pulled him across the corner. I got him on the other side of the garage. I'm like, "Look, you better not ever say that out loud, because my best friend, you will not make it out this backyard. Don't do that." And the thing is, it's just a cultural thing. In the islands, we all help each other out because we're all on the island together. If a volcano blows up or there's a big wave, we're all gonna die together. So we might as well help each other. So that's how it is in the islands. But in America, I've come to realize it's like this. We're gonna get what we came here for to get, rather than let's all help each other. So when he said that, I had to pull him aside, and I'm like, "Dude, that is not the maid. That's my best friend's mother. If he heard you say that, this party's over." So you need to watch what you say. And that's what I mean. It's just and that's to back up what you said about the parties and the beach and things like that. In Caribbean culture, I can dance with my mom to a reggae song and nobody thinks nothing of it. Her grandmother was absolutely appalled that I'm dancing with my mother.
Wow. I love, yes.
And my mom is drinking, having fun, good times, but it's just that's just something they've never seen before.
Exactly. So what about you, Thaddeus? You said you had something to add.
I kind of just wanted to add, kind of go off of what she was talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hannah was talking about, where I just kind of want to reiterate my point that culture is so important. One of the things that when we get together, men and women, we like to be enamored by the differences, right? So it's like you're attracted to something that you're not, right? So because it's new, it's fresh, it's interesting. It's like, okay, he's tall, I'm short, he doesn't have boobs, I have boobs. Like you're very attracted to, they said opposites attract. So you're very attracted to someone who is of a different, they, you're allowed, they're soft. So like initially it's exciting, right? He's black, you're white. It's exciting. He's from a different culture. What you're thinking in your head is, "Ooh, this is going to be so exciting. I'm gonna teach him my culture. He's gonna teach me his culture."
Honeymoon
And
phase.
get together and you realize that it's nothing like that.
Nope.
And that's why I said like to experiment. But at the end of the day, when they're ready to settle down, when they're ready to raise their kids, when they're ready to get a long-term partner, they usually go back to something that they know, something that is
Familiar space.
culture. I see a lot of my friends do it. I see them try the interracial thing. The relationship normally it sparkles. It takes off like a bang, and then it just fizzles out really, really quickly because very, very quickly it's apparent that I am this, you're that. I go to church every week. You haven't seen the inside of a church in years. But these
That's so true, though.
in the initial, in the initial phase, the initial what you call it, infatuation stage, these things don't matter because it's more about, oh, he's so, look at his eyes pop when they like, their blue eyes, and oh my, like those are the things that you focus on. After a while, you start to realize that, oh man, if we have kids, like my kids gonna go to church, they're not gonna go to church. What are we gonna eat?
Oh, I agree with you. I'll tell you this: my mom is crazy, and any woman that comes over is never going to be good enough. But let her be from another race, then it just takes it a new level of crazy. So here's a funny story I could tell you. So Hannah's my ex-wife is ultra white. I went over there for Thanksgiving, and they have all the proper plates, and nobody's saying anything. Super uptight, and so I, thinking it's a joke, I said, you don't have to put on a show for me, and they and they thought I was just nuts. But I'm used to Thanksgiving. Anybody knock on my door, we're playing music, we're pushing out the table, everybody's dancing and singing. These people weren't having that. They were watching football and shut up and drink your food and get out.
Think very Norman Rockandy type vibe, like very traditional.
So it was, for me, the culture was shocking because I really thought that they were joking around, never experiencing this little Norman Rockwell thing. And, I'm used to thinking, I'm from South Florida, my friends, we got music in the background, we're all dancing. Anybody can come over, you're drinking, you're having a good time. These people, you don't say a word, you don't say nothing. And I'm like, what kind of Thanksgiving is this? And this, so.
Yeah, to back up what you said, it's just.
Go ahead. Oh, I was saying, so with globalization and the whole thing about diversity and all this, do you think at what point we are going to get to like one culture where everyone's going to kind of be on the same page eventually? No. Do you think that's ever going to happen?
Nope.
Yeah.
No. I disagree.
It'll happen physically based on people having mixed race babies, but it will never happen culturally.
Yeah.
So you don't think so? In your experience, Sheldon, the fact that you guys had the mixed baby, did that help both sides kind of be able to mesh a bit better? Or
my son has 2 different lives.
Oh.
Yes.
And one more point that I wanted to make is, like, for instance, I have never dated a Black American. So that's to show you it's not even about race. Like, I look at a Black American woman and I'm like, I would.
I've never dated a Black girl, period, until now.
Yeah, is she American or is she Caribbean?
No, she's Jamaican.
Oh, see, and that's why I say we always go back to that culture. It's not.
It happened by accident. It just worked.
See,
I bet it was an accident.
That's to my point. Is like we always go back to our culture. We always go back to what we know. Like every time I've like really clicked with someone, it's always either even white, Black. It's always someone from the same culture. Always somebody from the same culture. So
the crazy part for me is the one thing I've realized, because coming from the islands, like we don't experience that racism like that, because it's like a melting pot for all different races. I have cousins that look Indian, so it's like you never know.
So I did want to go into that as well in terms of being American and the whole Black versus white thing, because at one point I was kind of starting to get to know a guy that was white, and I felt like I didn't want to, I felt like he was sheltered. And I felt like, you know, bringing up my culture or bringing my quote unquote Caribbean or Blackness to him would be too much for him. It's like I didn't know how to handle him. It was like I was treating him like he was fragile. Because I do feel like there's this sense among Black people or Caribbean or what have you that white people are kind of sheltered, like they don't know the harsh realities of things, and you know what I mean. So
culture.
I know. So I'm just saying
I
that
met a white girl that was more Black than I was.
No, but I'll tell you a trick of how you understand. For me, if to see if a white person truly understands you, befriend them and watch how they react when they're upset. Because whenever there's two emotions that are brutally honest: drunkenness and anger.
Okay, now
I've had my white kid's mother literally tell me, Sheldon, I'm a white girl. I can call the cops and tell them you hit me, and because I'm a white girl, they'll believe.
I've heard that.
But then I had to break it down to her and say, but if someone said that to our son, how would you feel? But you would say that to his father with no qualms about it.
Okay, with all this being said, are we trying to say don't date outside your culture? Like
that's exactly what I'm saying. Relationships already have such a high failure rate. Why would you put additional complexity on
I'm not gonna say don't do it.
Sir,
I'm gonna say if you're going to do it, be aware of what you're getting into. And if your partner is strong enough to stand by you and go through it, who's to tell you who to love?
Correct.